Welcome to the Choosing Cheer podcast, the show about the joy of Jesus in all of life's moments. I'm your host, Nicolet Bell, and my hope is that you'll see his joy is not dependent on circumstances, but rooted in his presence. Let's go there together. Hey friends, welcome back to the Choosing Cheer podcast. I am glad that you have joined us today, and we have a very special guest on the podcast today, a friend of mine, Fran Patterson. Fran, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. Fran, for those of our listeners that don't know you, let's just get started. Tell us a little bit about you.
I'm a native Jacksonian, Frances Rooks Patterson, go by Fran. I have 4 amazing adult children, 5 grandchildren, another one on the way. Just found out about that. They're kind of spread all over. Like I said, I was raised in Jackson, went to school at St. Joe, Mississippi State, lived in Dallas for about 15 years, and then God brought us back here in such amazing timing that only He could have navigated. And I've been a lifelong special educator. I really got a calling at about age 14 or 15 through a youth program at St. Richard's that I was involved with that led me to decide. I can remember the moment in time. I have no idea what the date was, but the moment in time, I was about 14 or 15 that made me say, I want to spend my life working with people with different abilities, with special needs. And I remained true to that. I went to college. I did a senior service project at St. Joe with special needs children. Funny enough, very familiar to, or similar to what the type of work we do at Little Lighthouse. Went to college and have worked with everything from adults in a group home to children at school-age children to abused children, and then came back to Mississippi and really didn't want to go back into a typical classroom setting. I taught school in Texas for several years and went to work for Special Olympics, and it was through an invitation from Little Lighthouse to Special Olympics for a community luncheon, which I think you've attended one, that we have 4 or 5 times a year, that I found out about Little Lighthouse. And that was October of 2015. And I remember again, another moment in time when I walked in the home they were at then, Briarwood Presbyterian, and saw just the things, these tiny walkers and pieces of equipment. I had not even seen the children yet, and was overwhelmed with just the sense of Jesus in the midst of this program. And made a decision at that moment that for such a time as this, that's why God wanted me there, and I knew that one day I would love the opportunity to teach there. So that was October. It was August 2016. Well, June of 2016, they called. I immediately filled out an application and just said, hey, I know y'all probably don't have openings. It's the middle of the school year. I understood school year hirings, and just said, I would love to be considered if something comes available. And in June of that year, one of the teachers' husband had been transferred with his job, and they called and asked if I would like to come interview, and of course. And so a side note, and this is really nothing about me, but in the midst of that October to that June, I had been diagnosed with breast cancer and had gone through a full mastectomy treatment, and I was definitely wanting to make a change in what I was doing. Versus, I love working for Special Olympics, but it was administrative, and I felt the call to really get back to the heart of working with these amazing, like you said, creations from God. And so I jumped at the opportunity, and sometime later, I was asked to interview for the director when the former director resigned. And here we are today. 9 years later.
I was going to ask, how long has it been you've been the director? 9 years
Well,
later.
I started as a teacher August of 16, and I became the director in 17.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Wonderful. So for those that aren't familiar, we'll continue on the introduction of, tell us about Little Lighthouse and what you get to do there.
Yeah, well, it's the best place on earth. And Little Lighthouse is a Christian developmental center for children with special needs from ages birth to 6. We are 100% tuition free. We take nor accept any governmental funding, so state, federal, United Way funding, simply because the center of everything we do is Jesus. And even the center of our curriculum and our day is centered on God and his son, Jesus. And we don't want to take funding from any entity that would have the opportunity to tell us that we can't do that, or funding from an entity that funds organizations that don't line up with our biblical beliefs. We are, like I said, tuition free. We are able to serve 40 children in our current location at Christ United. And we have such a qualified staff. All of our teachers are certified special education teachers. We have associate teachers. We have 2 of each therapy discipline, OTP, speech, and occupational therapies. And honestly, and I talked about this last week when I was at a church talking to a group, we haven't audited the numbers in the last couple of years. The last number we had was right around $20,000 per child per year is what it cost us, because again, the families don't pay anything for our services. But I'm pretty sure it's more than that. We've added staff. Even though we haven't added children, we have very complex needs, and we've added staff to help. And we've added more to our administrative team to help raise money, because it's very important that we stay solid so that we can continue to serve at the level that we're serving kids right now.
It is such a beautiful place. Just such a special place. We'll tell a little bit. We were getting situated in the studio, and somebody asked, "Well, how did you guys meet?" Well, Fran and her team were looking for a place to kind of grow and expand a bit in a spot that better fit the needs of your organization. And at the time, I was serving on the Next Gen team at Christ United, and was introduced to you, and got the privilege of helping to champion you guys coming to our campus, and just got a firsthand witness at what you do and what an impact it makes on families. I was already a fan from some dear friends of ours that had a child in your program that was seeing phenomenal growth. And since then, the connection's just like, it's crazy. You'll be talking to somebody and their kid did attend Little Lighthouse, or their niece, or whatever. It's just amazing to see how many people truly have been affected by the work that you're doing.
That's a great point. And you really did. I remember sitting in those meetings, and you were expecting your first baby. And I remember just thinking, there were so many people in that room that were, like you said, champion the cause for us to be there, because we are a huge undertaking for any church organization in gifted space. And it was on the heels, or kind of in the middle of COVID, as we were having these discussions. I know Mandy and Vicki Lynn, who, preschool and Mother's Morning Out, their programs, just by nature of the time we were living in, their programs had shrunk some because everybody had to close for a little while or what have you. And they both stepped up and said, no, we know Little Lighthouse. Like you had a frame of reference because of people you knew with children in the program. And between them and you guys in Next Gen giving up some of your spaces that y'all were using on Wednesdays and Sundays and office space to allow us to come in and give up 5 classrooms that were at that time not being utilized, but knowing that eventually, and now we love it so much there, being immersed in a program with typical developing children, the Mother's Morning Out, weekday preschool, Little Lighthouse, all under the same roof. And if all the kids are there on any given day, like today, there's about 150 kids, 40 of them are ours. And one of the things that makes me so happy is to see the interaction, the reverse inclusion, to see those typical developing kids crossing paths, playing with our kids on the playground, inviting them in, and even kids as young as 4 and 5 coming up and inquisitively, which we are all inquisitive people, coming up and asking, why does he use that walker? What are those, why does she have to have glasses like that? Or why is she in a wheelchair? And I love that. I love answering those questions because it raises so much awareness. And so I know we won't live there forever. We've got a big plan to serve more kids because unfortunately, if you called today and said, I need to put my child on your wait list, it's about a 2-year, 3-month wait. We have, I think, approximately 150, a little more than 150 kids on the wait list. And we're always going to have that wait list because we know statistically in just the metro area, let's say a 40-mile area around the Jackson metro, there's about 1,200 kids eligible for our services by age and with some type of delay or diagnosis. A lot of those kids would not need the level of services we provide because it may be a child that just has a mild speech delay that could be treated in a more typical setting right now. And again, that number is a couple of years old from the last time I looked at those statistics. And so our wait list has grown just even since we started 4 years ago at Christ United. Our wait list has grown from about 50 to 55 kids to now 150 because the community is so aware. We've raised awareness not only, in publicizing who we are, what we do, in events that we host to raise funds, but also because the families we've served have gone out, like you said, and told people about us. And disability touches everyone in some way, whether it's an immediate family member, a friend of a family member, someone you work with that has a child, a grandchild. There's no place that it doesn't touch. And so that awareness that it raises of the need is so enormous. And what we do at Little Lighthouse, really no one else is doing.
That's what I was just sitting here thinking, that the difference in what you are offering is also what that shows. That other places aren't offering the level of care. And your program only goes till 6.
Age. They can stay through 6 if their birthday falls after September 1st. So through kindergarten, and that's because kindergarten is not mandatory in the state of Mississippi, and so we're able, and we are accredited through MAIS, so we're an accredited program, and we take very seriously what we do. We work very hard to get the kids, all the children we serve, ready for whatever's next. And one of the most common questions really is, well, where do they go when they leave you guys? And most of them will go to a public school. Overwhelmingly, the majority of our children live in the Hinds, Rankin, Madison counties. We work, and I personally, this is one of my favorite things to do. I personally work very hard helping with those transitions. And so the kids that we know that have to graduate this year, we've started in October of every year, we start talking to that school district where they're potentially going to go and making sure, because it's a huge, signing up to send your child to school is a big deal, but signing up and all the things that have to happen with a child with some type of delay or disability, the IEP process, the evaluation, the therapies, related services, and it's overwhelming. And so, one of the things I think that Little Lighthouse provides that is as important as the services to the children is the community to the families. One of our families, and I'm sure he wouldn't mind me telling you this, and he actually works with us now, Wesley Mockbee. He's our capital campaign manager. Wesley and his wife, Chelsea, have 4 children. They have 2 sons, and then Mary Ellis, who is in our program, and then they had another little boy. And Wesley, in his own testimony, when they've spoken to groups, has talked about how isolating you feel. And they had a prenatal diagnosis with Mary Ellis, and so they knew while they were expecting. And it's no fault of anyone. You're not pointing a finger, but you've already had a couple of kids and how excited everyone is. Yeah. And then you find out you're having a child and something, you really have no idea what life's going to be like. And because people don't know what to say, they kind of back away. I mean, it's human nature. It just happens. And so what immediately happens with our families when we bring them in, and we even try to do this with our waitlist families, is provide that community. Mm-hmm. People who just from the outset understand, get it.
Yeah.
And the expectation of anything outside of doing what you can do is minimal. Of, hey, let's just show up and be. And so we do work very hard to invite our waitlist families to information parent meetings we try to have each month. We try to keep them as included and as involved as possible. Mm-hmm. And so that's one of the things I love the most, is seeing these friendships that form that are going to last a lifetime, mm-hmm. and of people who would have never crossed paths.
Right.
We've had families drive as far as Carthage, Meridian, Brookhaven, wow. and really life-changing. One that I'm thinking of was driving from almost Meridian every day, and she now lives in Ridgeland or in Madison. She went to work for Madison Public Schools. Her daughter's in one of the schools there in Madison, and would have never even thought to have those doors opened. But her child was at Little Lighthouse, and she made connections with other people who had kids in that school district who encouraged her. You want more, because she lived in a very rural area. And again, it's just the nature of our state. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a lot of very rural areas. And so it's hard for some areas to provide the level of services, mm-hmm. because they're so isolated. Mm-hmm. And Mississippi really is doing a much better job in educating. I mean, the Mississippi Miracle of our fourth graders, that is, you could have a whole podcast on that. I encourage you to. But early intervention is still not in the forefront, mm-hmm. and really hardly anywhere. It's just not what is the most important. But we know the way children's brains form, that those first 5 years are imperative and pivotal for any child, mm-hmm. and especially a child with delays. They're already behind, and so that's what makes what we do so important, and so intensive and intentional. And our approach is so different. At Little Lighthouse, we approach therapies and education from a very transdisciplinary point of view. So it's very immersive in the classroom versus the clinical speech or occupational or physical therapy setting. And we're trying to get kids ready for life, because we're trying to get them ready to go out into the world and be a part of the community, and not stay home and not be isolated, because the world still isolates these kids. We're doing so much better. I don't want to be negative, but there's still a lot of work to do.
Still a long way to go. Yeah. So I think of two particular examples that of people we've been in relationship with that have been touched by your program, and one is Charlie Rigby, who I saw reading.
Singing and reading. I know, I saw that same video.
Reading yesterday, and I just stopped. I saw it on social media and just stopped and just said, thank you, God. Thank you, God. We were there with her parents in the beginning of getting her diagnosis, and a very rare, and just the
that community. I want to interrupt you, because her diagnosis of Cru de Chat is so rare. But we had already served 2 children with Cru de Chat, and they were like, "What?" And so the community that immediately happened and came around them, because she was so young when they put her on our wait list, and that's only God, because we serve so many children with very, very rare genetic chromosomal abnormalities that no one's ever heard of. And we're like, we have a family. We have a family, an example of a family this year with a little boy with Williams syndrome. And he started with this past spring. And Kylan, he's so amazing and precious. And it's called a social syndrome. So these kids are very social. And his mom called, and we were having this long talk. And I said, have you ever connected with this family? I said, their son now is grown. And she said, wait, no, I was told they didn't think there were any families in the area. And so I said, hang on, she's a friend of mine, because he was a Special Olympic athlete. And so we connected. And the fact that we've been able to do that for so many families that felt, my child is one of 100 in the country. And we're like, well, but we have somebody for you.
There's another one right here.
There's another one right here. Yeah.
And that just for all of us in life, what it means to face something and to feel alone.
Yeah.
Versus facing something and to feel like you have somebody that's walking with you that understands what you're going through. But even magnified for these families. Right. It's just incredible the impact that has. And seeing those kids be able to go back into
Charlie
school.
is thriving.
It's mind blowing. And then my across the street neighbor is Joellen, and she was in your program.
Yeah, she predates me
years and years ago. And we're this Friday night going to go watch her cheer.
Yeah, I saw her this past Friday because I went to that school where she's graduating from.
Right. I mean, just absolutely incredible. And getting to take my daughter to watch her cheer, my typical daughter, and to show her that anything is possible.
That's right.
And nobody would have thought that was possible for her. But, it's just amazing how God shows out in the lives of these families, but truly using the work that you guys are doing to launch these kids into a life that is so inspirational to those around us.
The one thing we do is we give parents hope and a reason to believe that their children can and that they will. It is so rare when we sit down and we do a screening interview with parents before their child starts, when they're at the top of the list, and asking them or hearing them say, we were only told, don't expect them to fill in the blank. They probably will never. As one family in particular, and this mom, she told me this years ago at Briarwood, I'd just become the director, and he's now 10 years old, and he was barely 2. And she said, we were told he'll never hold his head up. He won't sit up. He won't be able to communicate. He'll never walk. And he runs. And so we look at everything as they can, they will. Even the tool we use instead of an IEP and a typical evaluation tool, we use a tool that was created specifically for Little Lighthouse that focuses on the positive. And so it starts with all of our new kids. It starts with, these are the things they can do. The checklist is what they can do. It's not a negative. And then we build from that. We build their goals and their program from, here's where they are, here's what they can do, and these are the skills that come next.
Yeah.
And what a difference maker that is. I think I guess we're typical humans. I don't know. Sometimes I question myself, but even walking around and somebody and saying, you're not going to be able to handle that. You can't do that. Immediately it makes you think, well, maybe I can't. The power of words and the power of encouragement is so huge. And that's for everybody. Everybody that God has ever created needs to have the power of and to be encouraged and to do, to fulfill the plan that God has for their life.
We've talked about before on here about the growth mindset and just the power that has on our spirituality, even of just becoming all that God had in mind for us to be in advance. Right. I forget the scripture reference for that, but that is a scripture. And just the I've always been this way, or this is how I'm going to be.
I'm not good at math. I can't do math.
Yeah, I can't do this,
true.
Right? I've said that a lot of times. But, having just that change in our mindset and what power that has. Okay, so this is the Choosing Cheer podcast. We talk a lot about joy on the podcast, and I want to ask you just a little bit about that, because why I thought of you to interview for this, and why Little Lighthouse kept coming to my mind, is because like you said, it's one of the best places on earth, right? And you walk down the hallway. I did come to a community luncheon recently. I hadn't been around because I'm not on staff anymore at Christ United. And so got to walk down the halls and just see the kids again and see what joy is so bright. It's like joy is just like bursting at the seams
really
from your staff to the kids and the families. And, you know, I'm friends with some of the people on your staff. Their jobs are hard.
Yeah.
These are not easy jobs that would be easy to go.
Yeah, they're a job that most people wouldn't want to do just because of the physicalness and the things you know, nobody's toilet trained hardly. Some of the things you're having to do every day, but yeah.
But the joy is just
radiating.
It's just amazing. And so why do you think that is?
Well, first and foremost, it's because every day at Little Lighthouse, the staff starts in a half an hour of prayer and devotion. And not only, you know, we may be doing a study, or right now everyone took a turn signing up and they're sharing kind of their life guiding scripture for their life or where they are now, or, you know, something that's helped them, and or a song that really has brought them to the place they're at today or in today. And that has just, every time we do this exercise, I'm just blown away by the depth. Even our very youngest staff, these young women that are 22 years old, and I'm like, wow, God has touched you in such a beautiful way. But so we start that without fail. Like literally, somebody's car was on fire in the parking lot, a parent one day. We were in the middle of it. They ran in and said, "My van is smoking." And I said, "Okay, you guys keep praying. I know how to use a fire extinguisher." And so I ran outside, said, "It is. I'm squirting your car." And we called 911. And then the fire department got there, and they were still in the middle of flock time. We call it flock. And I was like, "Okay, you guys got it. I'm going to go back and pray." And so I say all that to say we've had tornado sirens. Nothing stops that. Nothing halts COVID when we weren't supposed to, and we couldn't when we came back from COVID and we couldn't have early care, we would be so intentional after the kids left, we would do it at the end of the day. So we wouldn't have to cross-contaminate the children in each other's classrooms. And so we start that way without fail, and we keep a gratitude journal and a prayer journal every day, and have even before I started. And we go back and read through those every once in a while and see the things that are being prayed for and how they're being answered. And it's really hard to not start your day with joy when you're overfilled with God's love and presence. And what happens in that room, it's just one of the rooms off 84. It's just one of the third grade Wednesday night classrooms.
Rooms, yes.
But it really sets the tone. And in order to even be a staff member, you have to be a professed Christian. You have to be practicing your faith. And you have to sign a lifestyle commitment that you are going to abide by God's commandments. And that changes everything when you know every person on your staff has made that commitment. And that's not we're not discriminating. I mean, it's another reason why as a nonprofit, and we take no funding from anyone except our own internal fundraising. So we can do that. We serve any and every family that comes in based on, it doesn't matter, socioeconomic, religious, race, ethnicity. And we share the gospel with their children, and we tell them up front, even if you're not a practicing Christian, your children will learn this. And are you agreeable to it? And we've never had a family say no. We've actually have some pretty amazing conversion stories of families through their young children who would stop them at dinner and make them say grace, because we do that before snack and lunch every day. And the children, they're our best disciples, you know. But the joy really comes from the children. It really does. And they're hard. There are times that it's extremely hard. There's a lot of behavior, a lot of hard things that happen. But pushing those kids to be their best and independent. And I love watching our staff do that. They don't allow anyone to step in and do something for these kids if the thought is that they can do it on their own. And really, at the end of the day, we know we can lay our heads down and say, we did your work today, God. We were your hands and feet to the best of our ability. And there's just no other place like it. There's no other place. And we have an overwhelming committed staff that is willing to work for not a lot of money, but work for the kingdom. And I mean, honestly, some days I'm thinking, how is anybody paying their bills on what the money that they make doing the work they do? But that's not what it's about. Like I said, where he guides, he provides. And I've seen it happen for our staff, for our families in need, for our ministry. And sometimes in the past, we've had shortage and we've really needed funding to do something, and we've prayed about it. I mean, there's story after story, and 2 days later, there's a $25,000 check in the mail that we had no idea.
Weren't anticipating. Yeah.
Wow. So, and it's never about money. It makes my fundraising team insane when I say that, and the development, and Wesley, who's trying to raise money for this new building. But I'm like, it's never about money for me. It's all about awareness and changing people's hearts towards people that are different. And being accepting and loving. I don't love the word inclusion because it has become such a political word, but acceptance, acceptance and love, is really our goal. And one of the things we love so much about Little Lighthouse, we are on the pediatric rotation for UMC and MC's nursing schools. We are on the service learning for about 4 or 5 different elementary, middle, high schools, private and public. And so they have students coming through all the time. The PTA students from Hines, we have so many medical fields that are coming in. And it's so great they get to see under one roof, which they may never spend their entire career seeing in the medical field. But we have so many stories with some of those young people coming in and saying, wait, I don't know this story you're telling. Because I think last year it was the story of Moses. They were sharing, and this young guy said, wait, I don't know who this Moses guy is, but I want to come back tomorrow and hear the rest of the story. It's just fascinating. We live in the Bible Belt, so you're like, wait, how do people not know? But really,
these students are coming in from all over.
All over. And the impact, our focus is on these children, but I'm like, no, but it's not really. It's the entire community. And so when our mission statement says to glorify God by improving the quality of life of children with special needs, their families, and their communities, I think all 3 of those are of equal importance. Because when our community knows more, they will do more. They will want to do better. And not saying that anyone's not doing well, but they'll want to notice and be more helpful to that mom in the grocery store that's struggling because she has a child with autism who is overstimulated, freaking out. And instead of judging, stepping in and saying, how can I help? That's, it's my goal as the director. My goal is to change our community. The staff is doing an exceptional job with the kids. My goal is to the outreach to the community, because like we said earlier, it will touch you at some point, very personally. It will touch you, a child with some type of different ability will touch your life and hopefully change it for the better.
Yeah, that's so good. And I think even like I've found in my own parenting journey of when Josie sees somebody in a wheelchair, somebody that's different than her, instead of going, shh, like don't point, don't do that, but really embracing her questions, talking to the other family. And I find that that's so much more
Because that's all your child is doing. They're just wanting to know.
Yes, they're wanting to know, and don't shut that out, but let's encourage those conversations. Yeah. And the families, most of the time, they're open to that. They're not going, oh, she's pointing at my kid because she's in a wheelchair. What's more hurtful is when we act like we don't see.
Right.
We
either ignore it,
so we're so worried about
stigmatize it by saying, no, just keep walking.
Just
so now it's a bad thing. Yeah.
Right. And we've made it seem that way. So even just, for our listeners, just in the simple way that we interact in our own lives and with our own children of making sure that we are encouraging that curiosity and not shutting that down and putting our kids in positions to be exposed to people that are different than them.
Yeah.
It's a question I ask myself all the time. Who are we around that's different than us?
Yeah.
Not just in ability, but in race and socioeconomic status. Do all our friends look just like us?
Right.
We need to think about that, right?
That's right. I have a great little speech I give. So St. Andrews fourth graders do their service learning, have for years. We have a young man on our youth advisory board who's a senior who learned about Little Lighthouse in fourth grade. And he said, I still remember your talk, Miss Fran. And so there were all like 40 of them sitting there, and I have them just sitting on little dots, and we're talking. And I'm like, look to your left, look to your right. I did it the opposite. Look to your right, look to your left. I said, are you guys just alike? And they're like, oh, gosh, no. I mean, do you have the same hair color, eye color, skin color, glasses? Are you wearing the same shirt? And so we launch it from, if you're all different, then, because I guess the first question is anyone nervous today about meeting these kids? Mm-hmm. Yes, some of them. Why? Because they're different. We don't understand. And then we launch into that. And you see all these light bulbs going off like, oh yeah. You don't dislike her because she has red hair or him because he has glasses. Yeah. And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, then why would you be afraid or dislike someone who's different in another way? And I'm telling you, these kids, that we cannot pry that they stay for about an hour and a half. We cannot pry them out of that classroom. Like there's wailing and gnashing of. They're like, don't make us leave.
They want to stay.
Yes. Yeah. That's the sweet spot age to me, that fourth grade age. Because they're still young enough and silly enough, and they don't think they're really super cool yet. But they're so open to asking questions. And the one thing, and this is what I would encourage your listeners, let your children ask questions. Just tell them to never phrase it as what's wrong with them.
That's right.
Because immediately it's a negative. And they're like, well, how do we ask a question? Why does he need those braces on his feet? Mm-hmm. You know, why does he have to ride in a wheelchair? Or, you know, why is his head shaped differently? I said, guys, it's okay, because it is that. You just want to know why. Or I said, you could even say, what's their diagnosis? Or, you know, did they have an accident? Or did something happen that made them have to need that wheelchair? It's okay. Just never ask what's wrong. Mm-hmm. So
reframing the question.
That's right.
Has a lot of power.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell our listeners how they can connect with you and Little Lighthouse. Where can they find out more?
So LLHMS.org is really kind of the best.
Yeah.
It's our website. It's got pictures. It's got stories. It's just got beautiful information. And that's a place to start. Follow us on any of the social medias. Don't ask me the handles.
They're on your website, I bet.
Yes, they are on my website.
And we'll link them in our show notes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, again, my fundraising team is like, you're the worst at this. But we have a huge event coming up November 8th, our Laps for Little Ones. And of course, we'd love for you to come support. There's this great part at the end. It's a 5K. At the end, probably about 9:15, we call it strutting their stuff. And each one of our kids takes a turn walking, crossing the finish line. They're either walking, rolling, being carried, using a walk, or however, some are crawling. And while they're doing that, we read their founding scripture that their parents chose for them. So their scripture that started them either in this world or their journey at Little Lighthouse. And we give the accolades of all the things they've accomplished. And it is so impactful.
So
We've
powerful.
had children, it is. We've had children take their first independent steps. Now, did we kind of save it for that? Absolutely. But they were so close, and we didn't even know. I mean, I think
it's like, are they going to do it or not? So
this one little boy who I said his mother was told to never hold his head up, he did it, and we didn't know that he was going to do it. They showed up late. The new baby overslept. They got to the event late. His class, we go by class. His class had already gone. Here they come flying. I mean, 2 wheels, screeching, parking illegally in the parking lot. Jump out. Sawyer's in his chair. Dad comes running up with him. And right as he gets to the end, he stops. His dad stopped his chair and put the brake on and stood him up. And he was, they were all coming towards me because I had little medals for him. And I think I may have even had the microphone that year. And it was stunned silence, like 800 people outside Madison Healthplex. And he takes his first independent steps. And our hearts stopped. And so now it's kind of like every year we have to try to stage one of that happening. But it really is life-changing to see and to watch, because they're walking to their parents. We have them come in to their parents, and their parents have no idea what we're going to say or the things we're talking about. And it just, so I encourage, if you, on November 8th, about 9:15, 9:30, Broadmoor Baptist in Madison, it'll be a great fun day, but that would be something, and something to bring your children to let them witness. We let all the young kids come up to the front and witness it firsthand, because life is hard for all of us, but it's triply hard for these kids and their families. And we want all these children that will eventually be in their classes and in their schools with them to have compassion and love and just want to be their friends. Yeah.
So special.
So that's another way. And just go on our website, follow us on social media. We, not myself, do some amazing stories and reels and just fun facts. It's Down Syndrome Awareness Month this month, so there's a lot of information about different disabilities. And so
I know there's opportunities for businesses as well. We've donated silent auction items and things over the years, so there's lots of opportunities.
We have 3 big events each year. And if you want to be a part of anything, reach out or send us an email through our website, and we'll reach out. Volunteers, we always need volunteers. Volunteers are the backbone. The classes each day probably have at least 5 adults in them to 8 children, and that changes the way we are able to help these kids. And so if you're interested, and you can volunteer once a week, once a month, 2 hours a week, it's totally up to you.
Well, thank you, Fran, so much for sharing your story and the story of Little Lighthouse, and such a great reminder to all of us.
That's right.
Who are listening. So appreciate the work that you guys are doing, and just pulling for you for the future and this new project that you guys are working on.
Launching that new, the new building will be officially launched and publicly launched in February, and I can say it's going to be in Madison. We already have 10 acres, and it's designed to serve 150 children. Wow. So, yeah. It's a big ask.
Tripling your capacity.
Tripling, and again, at no cost. So, but God can do it.
Yeah, love that. Dreaming big, dream big. Well, friends, we are so grateful that you've joined us today for our conversation. I hope that you have been encouraged and inspired. If you're listening from not around the metro area, look for places in your communities that are making these same type of differences, and plug in, be a part. And we just invite you to be a part of shining the light of Christ and spreading cheer, spreading joy wherever you are in your life. Hope you'll join us back next week. Friends, if you enjoy our conversation week after week on the podcast, I hope that you will consider supporting our podcast financially. Choosing Cheer is run on generous donations by people just like you, and we need your help to keep this ministry going. If you would consider giving a $10 a month gift or a $20 a month gift, you can do so by visiting www.nicoletbell.com or following the link in the show notes. You go to the contact form and click the donate button. All gifts are tax deductible, and I would love to have you as a true partner in this ministry.